And they tried it, they had success, but recently something had changed. As he asked people to share this experience of imagining that Christ was alive in their life, people would say, "No, I don't want to try that. No, that sounds too weird." Or "I tried it and it just didn't work." And he became so discouraged. If these people couldn't see God in their life, did it mean that there was something wrong with his faith? Was he just imagining all this that was happening to him, or was this truly real? Well, perhaps a scripture from the Bible can help us. We find it in the 8th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew. One day after Jesus came down from the mountain where he had been just cheered on by people hearing his Sermon on the Mountain, he encountered a leper, a man with a horrible skin disease. And this leper said to Jesus, "Heal me if you will, if you want." And Jesus says, "I want to." And he reached out and he touched the leper. And suddenly the signs of his disease and his leprosy went away. His skin became clean. And the man was so happy and so impressed. And Jesus said, "Don't go around the neighborhood talking about this. Go to the priest, show that you are cleansed, and they will give you the official recognition of your being healed." The very fact that you have been healed will be testimony to everyone that God is at work in your life. It's an interesting story. Jesus heals someone. We've heard that before. Stories like it, or we've heard this story in the past, except with 10 lepers. And what does it tell us about finding holiness and peace in your life? Well, in our day, it seems like a nice healing story. In Jesus' day, that event would have really set people off. Jesus, who is clean, is touching a man with a skin disease, with leprosy, who was considered horribly unclean. If you touched someone when you were clean and they were unclean, you became unclean. It was like it was contagious. And everybody treated you like you were a leper, like you were an outcast, like you don't go near you or talk to you or have dinner with you, or certainly not sit on the same chair as you've done before. And so everybody was upset. What is Jesus doing? Here is this man who is unclean. He's actually reaching out and touching him. Ooh, doesn't it give you the chills just to think about it? They would have said. But what happens is everyone sees that the leper is cleansed. Cleanliness works in a different way they thought. Jesus' love and kindness, as he reaches out, doesn't get tarnished by the man's leprosy. Instead, Jesus' love heals the man. He becomes clean. His love changes the situation. Well, how would that work in everyday life? If we practiced that, if we reached out with the healing love of Christ. Andrea decided to try it out at church. Remember, Andrea was the woman with the kids who were noisy, who sat in back of her during the prelude when she was trying to be peaceful and quiet. Well, what happens? But she decided she would talk to the children behind her. And she got in this really nice conversation. She said to the children, "Why do you like to come to church?" And one of them said, "I love to hear the stories about Jesus. He does such amazing things, and it changes my life." And his sister said, "I'm praying for my uncle because this is where you pray for people who are sick, and I know that God is going to help him." And Andrea was amazed. These children had a more active prayer life than she did, although they were small. And she realized that though they were noisy, they had a lot of faith. And their faith was enriching her life as well. And it changed that moment. No longer were they the noisy kids who sit in back of her. Instead, they were people who brought God's love to church with them. It was a beautiful moment. And remember, she was having trouble at work because everyone was on the defensive and angry and being criticized by the management, and they were always finding fault with everyone now. And so she decided she was going to be different. She figured everybody was holding back because they knew that everyone was so tense that they were just afraid of what other people would say or think to them. So she decided she was going to reach out. And she said to someone who had been told that they had made many mistakes and did a terrible job, she said to this person, "You have been working here for how long? 15 years? And in all that 15 years, you have done wonderful work. Don't let them get you down. They're just trying to keep us on the straight and narrow. Do what they tell you, but don't let them get to you." It's all their style of management. And it's kind of mean if you ask me, but we don't have to put up with it. We're going to act like it doesn't matter to us. And when someone had been criticized and somebody had been mean to them, she said, "Look, he's just tense and in a bad mood because somebody told him off about a job he did the day before yesterday." And when someone was even mean to her, she was still kind to them and acted as though it didn't matter. And what happened is people around Andrea realized that they could trust her. She wasn't mean, she was kind, she was reaching out in love to them. And so they started to relax and feel comfortable and be kind to others as well. Even the managers, in their effort to be always on someone about the slightest mistake, realized that everyone was being respectful to them, but no one was getting very upset or shaken by it. So they even relaxed and were a lot nicer. It's amazing that sometimes one person's kindness and their love and their patience and their forgiveness can make such a difference, such a change in atmosphere in a workplace, a family, or even in a church. But what about Bob? Remember, that's Andrea's husband. And people were causing him to lose his faith because they weren't picking up on it. They weren't discovering that Jesus was in their lives like it had been in Bob's life. Jesus had been in theirs. And he realized, as he thought about it, that even there were times when Jesus met with resistance, people didn't always listen to him or believe in what he had to say. Not everyone was taken by his love and kindness. But Jesus never gave up. He continued to love and care for us. Isn't that the way it should be for us as well? That we need to reach out and not be discouraged when we share our faith. Some people are going to accept it and some people aren't going to want to hear it. But it doesn't mean that eventually we may not influence them. It doesn't mean that our faith won't eventually be theirs as well. So, oftentimes, we're looking for that perfect spot where holiness exists, where people are quiet and peaceful, where others are kind and concerned, and when just everyone wants to feel comfortable about faith. There aren't going to be many times you find that in the world, but there's always an opportunity by allowing the Spirit of Christ to touch our hearts, to reach out with that love and bring peace to others, to help them to calm and feel loved and share that love with others, and to accept the presence of Christ in their life as well. And now, Lorelei is going to share the second part of the prayer list with us.
We remember in prayer from Sunday, February 27th, Saren Boring, Joan Grosskos, Tony Heiss, Dustin Miller, Lori Miller, Shirley Miller, Mary Lou and Donald Meckley, Paige Creel and family, Baby Riley, Gary Rohrbaugh, Shirley Russell, Jackie Toman, Joyce and Tom Whitcraft. From Sunday, February 20th, we remember Gail Ambrosius, Cindy Breeden, Kevin Crum, Cassie Egan and family, Michael Hershey, Cordelia Kepler, Dolores Markle, Micah Miller, Willis Miller, Pat Palmer, Pete Renzulli, Zane Smith, Doug Sonleiter, Kathy Trimmer, Zachary Worley, Cecilia Williams, Cheryl Zumbrum. We also remember on February 13th, Angela Cox, Regine Crone, Steve Forbes, Wayne Frock, Lester Heckler, Chip Hoover, Richard Lookaball, Joseph Mongoliozzo, Dorothy Nagash, Kaylee Noble, Dean Rohrbaugh, Michael Shrevner, Deb Sell, Eric Sherman, Reverend Charles Strasbaugh, Evan Taylor, Beverly Trump, Dorothy Trump, Reverend Leonard Warner, Dennis Weichert, Shirley Zumbrum, and those we keep in our continuing prayers: Robert Anstein, Gary Clapper, James Deem, Dennis Fawzy, Todd Gladfelter, Cindy Helmers, Joan Hensel, Dr. Mark Hirsch, Dolores Jones, Warren Lockman, Ray Leiphart, James Miller, Lisa Myers, Bob Ottstott, George Rankin Sr., Mike Schmidt, Beverly Spite Mohammed, Kathy Rohrbaugh, Sharon Schuler, Summer Storm, Matt Strevick, Shari and Kenyon Taylor, Reverend Dr. David Stewart, Richard Brett Wilkinson, Kim Wilson, and workers exposed to COVID.
Change in my life has been wrought since Jesus came into my heart. I have light in my soul for which long I had sought since Jesus came into my heart. Since Jesus came into my heart. Since Jesus came into my heart. Floods of joy o'er my soul like the sea billows roll. Since Jesus came into my heart. I have ceased from my wandering and going astray since Jesus came into my heart. And my sins, which were many, are all washed away since Jesus came into my heart. Since Jesus came into my heart. Since Jesus came into my heart. Floods of joy o'er my soul like the sea billows roll.
And now, my friends, goodbye. Strive for perfection. Listen to my appeals. Agree with one another. Live in peace. And the God of love and peace will be with you. Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain.
Each one can reach one. As we follow after Christ, we all can lead one. We can lead one to the Savior. Then together we can tell the world that Jesus is the way. If we each one reach one.
You may be seated. Now for just a couple of announcements. The flowers are given to the glory of God in honor of the birthday of Jonas Sterner on February 15th and the wedding anniversary of Micah and Gail Sterner on the February 19th by Mindy, Maggie, and Elisha Sterner. Thank you for that. And remember that we still need some prayers for Lent. You may have seen on the introductory slides some prayers written by members of our church during the Lenten season for every day of that season, 40 prayers, not counting the Sundays, of course. And if you would write a prayer, you can email it, mail it. I don't think Sue takes dictation. Barnhart takes dictation, but you can get it to her some way or other, and we'll get it in the slides and be up and running for the Sundays to come. So I know Rita and I still have some prayers to write, so if you don't have any, if you haven't written one, don't feel guilty. Just get that prayer written, okay? Also, birthdays for this coming week: Thomas J. Strasbaugh, Brittany L. Starr, Wesley D. Miller, Adam R. Shue, Andrew D. Nace, Thelma Bogger, Darlene M. Lease. And
If anybody wants to connect to the worship service this afternoon, did they know that they could get on the phone or Zoom?
thank you, Jonas, for reminding me. This afternoon, as Jonas reminded us, we are having our 4 o'clock Lenten service. That's for all of us who are getting older, so we don't have to drive home in the dark, you know. And we hope you'll join us here either in person or, as Jonas mentioned, you can wait for the call to come. It will come at 4 p.m. And also the Zoom service will be open and welcoming guests, not only from our church, but from others. So wait for that call, and if you don't hear it, that number is 297-0608, 297-0608 in the 717 area code. And now Jonas is going to play a prelude. I will extol thee.